We're live. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
So for anybody who stumbles upon this or goes back in time to check it out, this is the beta episode 0 of our new show, Get It Made, where we talk about some stuff that we're going to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is going to be a totally stripped down, we don't have any of our materials yet episode, so we're not going to have any music, we're not going to have any bumpers, not going to have any visuals, we're going to have cats running around in the background. But
Let's see how it goes.
yeah, in the future, we hope to add production value. That'd be really nice. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to episode 0 of Get It Made. My name is Mike Lipson,
I'm Ben Marshallkowski.
and we're going to talk a little bit about productivity, creativity, how to do stuff, how to make stuff, and how we do and make stuff, and what kind of stuff we're making. So let's start by talking, just because this is kind of the introductory episode, we'll give you a little bit of a sense of who it is you're listening to, and then we'll jump right into some articles and news and stuff. So, like I said, my name is Mike Lipson. I'm a teacher, I'm a gamer, and I'm kind of a newbie developer. So most of my productivity-related work is around making either games or other kind of application projects. Sorry, my cat's very distracting. So I'm, futzing around with programming. I'm futzing around with any kind of digital application or creativity tool I can mess around with, and I just love playing with that kind of stuff.
And I am a writer. I write a blog, which is currently in the process of being transferred between hosting, so you can't see it right now. But I do write a blog, and then I am also a board game designer, and I am learning to code. I'm at a very basic level right now, but in all those kind of things, it's really, about workflow and process and figuring out what's the quickest way I can do stuff, what's the quickest way I can go from idea to prototype, and make myself as efficient as possible.
Awesome. And the name of your blog is?
BoardGameBen.com. If you go there right now, I think you can see the homepage, but then when you try to get anywhere, it's just going to fall apart on you. But that should hopefully be back in like a day or two.
Cool. All right. Well, by the time anybody sees this, with any luck, they'll be able to look at it.
Back in action, yeah.
All right. So we're gonna jump right into the new. I'm using air quotes right now, but the news is a weekly show, so it's not so new. But we'll talk about the news of the week, or maybe even just some articles that we find that we think are interesting. This week is going to be a little bit more of the latter. What's that?
If John Oliver does it, we can too.
Yeah, right. We can. Let's just go for it. So the first thing I want to talk about is an article I found. Well, it's not much of an article; it's more of an infographic, and we could talk forever about infographics. But there's this infographic called "The Daily Routines of Famous Creative People," and Lifehacker was posting it this week, but it's kind of made the rounds on the web. Have you had a chance to check it out?
I have not. I will pull it up now, though.
Yeah, the link I put in the notes goes to Lifehacker, but from there you can get a link to the actual thing. And on Lifehacker you can see an image that shows you kind of the visual diagram, but if you actually go to the site, there's hover over, little balloons you can see with that give you a lot more information. But basically the idea here is that it's a bar graph kind of, where each person on the list, and this is famous creative people, Beethoven, Maya Angelou, Kurt Vonnegut, Ben Franklin, Sigmund Freud are on here. And it basically kind of shows their routine and what they spent different parts of their day on, how much time they spent on each thing. And if you mouse over, you can get a little bit more kind of specific information about what it was they were doing. But it's a really cool way to both compare what different people kind of thought was a priority, and also to get kind of wider conclusions about how people spent their time. So, for example, the first thing I look at when I see this is sleep, which is the like the kind of turquoise-ish color here.
Mm-hmm.
And you can at a glance see like when people slept, and it's really easy to tell who went to bed early, who went to bed late. But with all of them, you can see that they slept a pretty fair amount. So if you're looking to emulate creative people, then you probably want to be getting your sleep. But there's other things in here too that are really interesting. How much time people spend on creative work, how much time they spend at their day jobs. How much time they spent exercising is really interesting. Not everybody on here exercises, but most of them did. Some of them multiple times per day. So just interesting insights you can get from this about how people chose to structure their time.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, seeing. I like that Balzac woke up at 1 a.m. and started working. Apparently.
Yeah, just goes to show you that you do not have to be on a normal schedule. You just have to be on a schedule.
Well, as a person living on the West Coast and working on an East Coast timeline, I can appreciate that. So.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Is your
by the way,
sleep?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you, is your sleep schedule all weird because of that? Are you all jacked up?
A little bit, not that crazy though, because I'm up at 6 and I'm just like right into work rather than like kind of getting ready and stuff. So
yeah,
it's like a shift, but it's not like my sleep is pretty much the same time it was normally. Maybe I'm up an hour earlier.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. So I
don't know about you, but I was out there last summer. I was out there last summer, and I've never felt like I actually adjusted. I just kind of enjoyed the fact that it felt like I was going to bed late and waking up late, and I never quite lost that feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of that.
Kind of nice. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it works. By the way, when I'm looking down like at the bottom of the screen, that is because I'm looking at my iPad, which has all the show notes. So if that's confusing to anyone, that's what I'm doing.
Cool. Maybe later in the show, if we get a chance, I think somewhere in here we said we were going to talk a little bit about. Oh no, it didn't make it in here. But maybe at some point we could talk about our setups and what devices we use, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that could fill up a whole show, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Let's jump on to this next article.
All right, so this is one I found which really excited me at first, which was called this new app site, which is supposed to streamline like reading and bookmarking of websites. And so basically what it talks about is these people launched this app, and what you can do is basically it takes an image of a website and then bookmarks it for you, like figures out what the URL is from the image of it, and bookmarks that for you within the app. Which at first I thought was really cool because I thought you were going to be able to just like be on your computer and like snap a photo of your screen and get it. But what it is only when you're actually on your phone, you have to take a screenshot of it, and then that automatically gets grabbed by site and it will process it, and if it's a website it'll find the URL from there. So it's a cool idea of being able to take an image and figure out the URL from it, but it's not fully baked yet. It doesn't send that bookmark anywhere useful at this point other than the site. It doesn't like I say, you can't be like looking at your work screen and taking a picture with your phone and get that same process yet. Hopefully they'll eventually do something like that with it, because I like the visual to data idea, but like I say, I don't feel like it's quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I can't picture how this would help me. Like I'm really interested in the technology, and I love that image recognition is getting to the point where it's useful. But isn't this aren't there more steps involved in this process than just bookmarking the site?
Well,
don't get me wrong.
From a strictly initializing standpoint, it's actually very quick, because you can do something like here. I'll even use my video abilities and show you that like I've got the website up. I can just snap a picture of it with my phone, and it's already going to be taken by site right now. So actually,
it watches your camera roll then?
It watches your camera roll.
Okay.
And so it's as quick as just that. And now if I go to the app, you can see, maybe you can't see, but it's analyzing up there, and then once it gets done, it'll populate up there, which I think I've already done for this. Yeah, it's already up there on that website. But now it's in here, so this isn't my browser. I'm not going to go here just to look at these bookmarks.
Right.
If eventually Evernote or Pocket or something, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'm sure all that integration will come later. But yeah, I mean, if you go there and you tap the image, doesn't it just take you back to the browser?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I think there is a browser in it, but it's not the one I'm going to use.
Right. Well, that's the other thing is like because of we could talk about restrictions on iOS, but because of the restrictions on iOS, you can't use other browsers effectively unless every app you use integrates them, and really Chrome is the only browser that does that. So you're using a subpar in-app browser that's not as good as your main browser, and yeah, this is just a multitude of problems. I mean, iOS issues aside, can we agree that bookmarking needs work?
Oh yeah.
The process of bookmarking sucks, and I keep seeing references on sites like Lifehacker that talk about Google's Stars project. This isn't in the show notes, but whatever, we can talk about it. And it's this project that's supposedly going to make bookmarking a lot better. And man, I'm ready. Like, make it better, because I'm not happy with the
closest thing I have to a good one right now is the Evernote plugin to Chrome, which makes it pretty easy to do, and it 90% of the time knows which notebook I want to put the particular thing in. But then from there, they just sit in there. Like,
right, and it's mixed in with all my other stuff. Like, I could make a notebook for bookmarks, but that's no different than just having bookmarks in the browser. And if I mix it in with all my other stuff, then I gotta go find everything. And like, I know that the whole point of Evernote is supposed to be that you can easily find what you're looking for, but it's not always that way for me. I mean, sometimes I'll search 4 or 5 times before I can find what I'm looking for, and it just doesn't always work as expected. And even when it does work, it's pretty slow. I shouldn't talk about it. I still use it. I use it for everything.
Oh, I do too. Like, whenever I see something interesting that I just don't have time to read if I'm at work or if I'm doing something, I just,
So you use it as like a read it later kind of thing?
Yeah.
See, I use Pocket for that.
Which is a whole nother.
Yeah. Oh, we'll do a whole day on that, definitely. But yeah, I use Pocket for read it later, and Pocket is actually, it's closer to like a DVR for me. I use it for a lot of video. I'll sit down and have like a Pocket video watching marathon. I might even do that tonight.
Cool.
Anyway, since we've strayed from the topic at hand, let's move on to the next thing.
Yes.
So, next thing I want to talk about is super general, but I want to talk about it anyway because I think it's cool. So specifically, one of the things we want to do on this show as kind of a weekly regular segment is put the spotlight on community projects or open source projects or things that you can contribute to if you're looking for something to work on. Because one of the problems that we have in the world of creativity is not just how do you do the thing you want to do, but what do I do, right? Like, oh, I have this time, I want to be productive, what do I do in that time? And so we're going to try to offer some options depending on what it is you're interested in and how you want to spend your time, what kind of tasks you like to do, and we'll see if we can find something cool for everybody. But so the first thing I wanted to talk about this week is GitHub. So for those who are not programmers, you may not be familiar with GitHub, but GitHub is a utility, but it's also a social network. It's kind of a congregating place for programmers, anybody who does work with computer programming. And it provides a lot of tools that let people store the things that they make on it and share things and collaborate and work together on stuff. But it's also just a great place to find projects that you can work on or that are looking for people to contribute to them. And it's kind of a collaborative work environment for programmers.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it because you can find all kinds of awesome stuff. I mean, I've like if I need a website template, I'll go there and search, and often I'll find it. If I need a library, like I was making a web application that was going to talk to Twitter, and I needed people to be able to sign in, and Twitter uses OAuth, which is pretty complex, and I'm a total nub, and I don't know how to use it. So I went on to GitHub and I searched for OAuth libraries, and I found an OAuth library that I could just add to my project, and then I was able to get my user logged in with only a few lines of code. So it's really good for stuff like that, but everything is on there. You can go, actually, if you get a chance, go to the Explore button up at the top. If I go ahead and click Explore, there's just all these different categories: 3D modeling, web games, data visualization, package managers, web application frameworks. There's a whole music category. The cool thing about this is people use it for stuff that's not normal code stuff. Like I actually have one of my game design courses posted up here, all the documentation for the course. So if anybody wants to offer my advanced game design course, they can go grab all the documentation and offer it, or they can contribute to it if they want to.
That's really cool. Now, do they also do support, if you're trying to figure something out with your code? I know I see a lot of Stack Overflow and stuff does stuff like that. Does GitHub as well?
Yeah. So if you're working on a project that has multiple contributors and you run into an issue, you can post issues in their kind of issues section for the project. And it
Okay.
actually works a lot like a ticket system if you're familiar with that in like the world of
Hmm.
IT.
Yep.
So I'll go to an example. So there's an app that I use a lot, although I've fallen off lately, called Habit RPG
Hmm.
right now here. But the project for Habit RPG is up here, so you can go and read through all the code and look at everything that they have in there. But you can also go and click issues. Here it is. And there are 621 issues right now and 3,000 closed issues. So basically, each one gets a number, and I can click on it and see. I'm doing that right now. I can click on it and see like what somebody's concern was, and then there's a space down at the bottom where you can have a discussion about it. There's kind of a comment system there, and the issue can be closed once it's fixed. So if you're contributing, one of the ways you can contribute to a project is not just to write your own code, but to go in, find bugs, and report them. And that helps the people
Oh,
who do
nice.
write the code go in and fix them.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think it's awesome. None of my projects, as you might imagine, are well known enough to get anybody submitting issues, but
Hmm.
I'm considering, if I ever run into a problem with Habit RPG or any of the other apps that I use that are hosted on GitHub, I might go in and just kind of report some of that stuff. Just because, even by reporting a bug, you're contributing.
Yeah, very true.
This is cool. There's all kinds of, you can label them, so there's kind of like a tagging system, so you can work on a bunch of related bugs at the same time. There's sorting. It's actually like it's a really interesting platform, even if you're not doing app development. Like you can use it for a lot of different things.
Very cool. So
Cool.
I'm actually,
So you were going to tell us about Board Game Hour?
yeah, I'm actually going to go completely off notes here because I realized that what I had noted here isn't really on that subject.
Okay.
Um, but I can talk about BoardGameGeek.com, which is a very popular gaming website for board gamers. And kind of in the same vein of like if you're looking for something to do or looking for a project to work on, but you want to do a game design, particularly tabletop game design, what Board Game Geek does is every month they do basically you have a month to create a game and they'll give you a prompt. It's almost like an Iron Chef type of thing where they'll give you maybe some mechanics you have to use or a limitation like you can only use 20 components in the entire game, stuff like that. And basically from there, everyone over the course of a month will design, play test, and submit their games, and they choose a winner every month, and they get some Geek Gold, which is their currency on the site, as well as maybe a free game or something. But it's a really cool idea that if you're just like, you want to create a game, but you don't know what to do, it's a great jumping off point because one of the biggest problems designers have in any field is that if you have all the options open to you, you don't know where to start. But getting like one or two of those restrictions in there really gives you that opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to make this really good because this is what I have to work on. So it can be a really good system. And I'm sure there's things like that for coding as well and other things where it's, I think it's Harvard has the hackathon.
Yeah, hackathons are becoming more and more common. Actually, you're seeing them all over the place. And that's something. Speaking of like productivity things to do, one of the things I really want to do is participate in a hackathon. I think that'd be really
Yeah.
awesome.
But it seems to be
Um,
that general idea that like you're given some sort of prompt or something you have to do, and therefore you're kind of given that first step to get going on a project.
that's cool. I really like that. We could spend a lot more time talking about the value of constraints.
Hmm.
Um, I have definitely felt that uh, that whole, I don't know what to do. The options are unlimited thing. Like it makes it
Hmm.
really, really hard to decide. Like when you sit down at a blank piece of paper and you don't know what to draw, if there's no guidance, you might sit there for hours trying to figure out what you're going to draw.
Hmm.
Whereas if someone tells you to draw a dog, then usually you can figure out, at least where you're going to start. And from there, you're able to develop a dog and kind of make it into something that is uniquely your own. And I think
Yeah.
that's true of any project. If you put constraints on it and you focus, then it makes it a lot easier to figure out where you're going. If you don't know where to start, then it's hard to know where you're going.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Cool. So the Geek Gold, does that let you actually buy like board games?
Sort of. It's not really that value. It got devalued pretty quickly, like every internet currency. But
Yeah.
you can buy like badges on the thing on the site, or sometimes people will. There is a marketplace there too, so you could, in theory, trade some of your Geek Gold for maybe part of a game if you wanted to.
That's cool.
But it's just really more of a sign of cachet. It's like Reddit karma.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Currencies are really hard to do, man. I tried to do currencies in my class once, and man,
Oh.
offering rewards is really tough.
Hmm.
Like you have to know, you have to be able to place a value on things that don't have explicit value, you know?
Yep.
And it doesn't work unless there are multiple things with multiple values and each has value relative to the other, and that's
Hmm.
really hard. For me in the classroom, it was really hard because I didn't know like what can I offer these kids, you know? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you can control the music for a day, or you can have some candy, or you can have a 5 minute break or something. But it's like it's it never works because it becomes like a discipline tool, and it's not meant to be a discipline tool. It's meant to be something else. I don't know. It just never stuck for me.
Well,
But I have
I think they're always unwieldy. You could even look at like what happened with Diablo 3, where they,
yeah
set up the auction system and they, intended for it to work, and then it just got hyperinflated because too much stuff was getting into the market.
yeah there's oh my god there's so many more issues with that too because it was basically game breaking
Hmm.
because it took the whole point of the game, which was to gather gear, and
Hmm.
it made it so easy that the game itself was pointless, and it made it doable via real money and not just in-game money. So the game was even more pointless because you could just buy the game, buy gear, and you're done. You don't need to play a game anymore.
Hmm.
Which is like, I'm not sure how that one got past them, but
Yeah.
they very smartly decided to remove the auction house, and the game has never been better. It is
Mhm.
fantastic.
Oh,
In
I
fact,
believe
I
it.
might even play tonight. Oh, so good. That game's like crack, man. It's so good.
Speaking of
Um,
things that affect productivity.
yeah, yeah, not great when you're thinking about productivity. Um, so let's talk about, let's move on to our next segment, which would be a time for some music and maybe a graphic.
Ah,
But so the next
do-
thing we're going to do is talk about tools and tips, and this is, I think, the meat of where people want to go if they're tuning in here seeking productivity tips. This is where it really gets interesting. So I always go first. You go ahead and go first.
All right, so I'm going to talk about one that a lot of people probably know about or at least familiar with, which is Google Drive. Um, if you still think it's called Google Docs, check it out now because they've made a lot of updates since then. You have added something. Whoa, you have a thing now.
Sorry, I have a lower third, which I thought I had before, but that was in the other Hangout.
I'm gonna have to get me one of those
So
for next
my
episode.
B. Yeah, the app is called Hangout Toolbox. So if you want to play around with that, you can.
Good to know. I'll check that out.
Yeah, we'll make sure
But
we both have
anyway,
them next time.
speaking of Google Drive, or speaking of Google Drive, I find to be incredibly useful. I found it really useful when I was not working from home and I was working in an office, and I would, have an idea, want to write it down, work on something at lunch for a game or something, and then when I would get home, I'd want access to it. And carting around a USB stick is just so 7 years ago that I was happy to find that Google Drive would let me, create all the documents I want. And then over time, I got to really familiar with that, and as well the spreadsheet tools, which are incredibly useful. Because especially when you're creating a game and you're starting to like build out your components and stuff, there's a lot of math that ends up going into that. And like, for example, I was trying to figure out how like certain dice rolls would work. Where if you add a die, how does that affect the odds of rolling a success? And I was like finding myself writing on post-it notes like dozens and dozens and dozens of dice rolls and the results. And then I'm like, there's probably some sort of equation that can do this. And I found online that it's called hypergeometric distribution, which sounds really cool.
It sure
Um,
does.
and it's but basically just multiplying a bunch of numbers together.
Okay.
And then I looked on Google Drive, and it's like, oh yeah, we have a function for that. You just plug in HYPGEO into our spreadsheet thing, and we'll do it for you, and it's wonderful.
That's awesome.
Um, Similarly, just even formatting, like the version, and I might be a year back on Excel, but the version of Excel I have lets you conditionally format, I think, 3 different conditions, where Google Drive is like half a dozen at least, if not more, conditions. So basically, if I want to make a bunch of different categories and stuff, I can do it really easily with Google Docs and Google Drive. and have all that ready so that at a glance I'm like, okay, I know I've got this many of this kind of thing and this many of this kind of thing, and I need to balance this a little better, and it makes it so much quicker to do all that.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say the conditional formatting, its appeal isn't immediately obvious until you've used it a little bit, but the glanceability of it is like 90% of why I use it, and it's like so valuable to be able to just look and immediately know whether a value is in a certain range or something like that. But
exactly.
There's also value in the fact that those conditions can change, because you might be making a change in some other area of the spreadsheet, but then that color of that cell changes, or the highlight of the cell changes, and your eye catches it. Yep. And that's actually really valuable, because you might not have seen some important piece of information that you've now seen. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's really, really valuable to be able to do that. And it sounds like you're even maybe a little bit deeper than I am into kind of what you can do with formulas. But I did a lot with formulas when I was keeping track of scores and grades, and that's really, really valuable when you're able to just very quickly see, like, okay, how many of my kids are failing? And it highlights 2 out of 25. And you're like, okay, that's acceptable. Or it highlights 15 out of 25, and you're like, okay, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Exactly the same thing. What I'm doing.
It's so much easier to see. Also, to speak to your earlier comment about USB keys, yes, USB keys are a complete pain, and actually this one always amazes my students, but at PAX years ago, someone gave me this. It's his business card, and it has
it's one of those
USB dongly dude there. And this thing is a freaking lifesaver because I carry it in my wallet, which means I don't need to carry it on my keychain, which means it doesn't really take up any extra space.
That is nice.
I'm loving that. But I rarely use it, honestly. Most of the time I use Dropbox or some other syncing service like Google Drive. Actually, Google Drive has expanded to do all that file syncing stuff, so that's a whole other topic. But I will say, of all the things that I love about Google Drive, and I don't take advantage of this nearly as much as I should, but it's fairly open and people can integrate with it. And I especially love some of the things you can do with IFTTT, IFTTT. All these things are topics for other days. But I mean, you can append a line to a document or append a row to a spreadsheet. So you can just, like, I don't generally use Google Docs as like a collection place, but it sounds like you do. And I could imagine all kinds of ways you could use IFT to keep track of things in Google Drive that you want to be able to keep track of, or send things to Google Drive.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I'm not kind of here yet with my technological ubiquity, but someday when I have like a whole like smart home setup and I've got things turning on and off automatically and logging when people enter and leave and stuff like that, I could definitely see having all that logged in a Google spreadsheet or a Google document, and then just like, I want to see who was here yesterday, so I just pop in there and you can see all that information. It'd be really cool.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
So that's a like few years down the road kind of thing that I have in mind.
One other small thing that is useful when I'm like writing a blog is the linking function. Because it's Google, if you want to make a hyperlink to something in a document, it automatically basically searches whatever you're going to make the link, and it's pretty damn good about figuring out what link you want there, what URL you want to connect it to. So I love that when I'm like, especially when I'm writing like a blog about a board game, and you don't really want to have to go into Board Game Geek and then find the game and then get the link and all that, whereas if you just write the name of the game and you highlight it and say I want to make a link, it'll generally be like the first or second option there. You just click and you're good to go for that. And then from there, I'll usually write my blog posts in Google first and then move it over to WordPress.
That's awesome. I actually didn't know about that until we started making the notes for this show. Mm-hmm. And I started, Command K-ing to get my my links in there, and I realized that I was typing in a search field, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that. I've only scratched the surface. Oh, and speaking of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Focus, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Like constraints. Google Drive is so well focused. Like, it's not my text editor of choice. I'm a Apple man, and I love pages and numbers and everything. I'm such a numbers freak. But Google Docs does such a great job of giving you only what you need. It's so just like only the basics, and you rarely find yourself needing anything else. They're just so good at determining what it is people are going to use.
No, yeah, it's incredible. There's a couple things I would like to have, just mostly formatting stuff, just because of the way I write. But other than that, like, couldn't ask for anything else from it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I've never needed something that wasn't there, but I almost never need something that isn't there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about a different tool here. My tool of the week is Alfred, which is a Mac application. So sorry for those of you who are on Windows. If you are on Windows, I believe the vague thing that I use that's vaguely equivalent is Launchy, I think is what it's called. But if anybody is a Mac user and has been around since the days of Quicksilver, you might know what Alfred is, or if you've used Spotlight, which is kind of Apple's built-in equivalent. Or if you saw the unveiling of OS X Yosemite, you might have noticed that the new version of Spotlight comes up in the middle of the screen and has like a big search bar. It's basically kind of a clone of Alfred. Alfred got copied a little bit there. But Alfred is so much more than just a search, and so I will try very hard to scratch the surface of what it is. People who might have seen it might have been browsing the iOS App Store or the Mac the Mac App Store. Because it was featured there for a while, it appeared on their front page, and you can actually go on the App Store and download it for free. And if you do that, you get a lot of the basic functionality like file searching and app launching and stuff like that. When I first started using it, I really just needed an app launcher. I wanted to be able to type one letter and have the computer just know which app I wanted. And I still use it for that like 50% of the time. But it does so much more than that, especially if you upgrade to the paid version. So basically, when you download Alfred, you get the free version, which comes with your file search and your app launching and all that basic stuff. And then if you pay for the Power Pack, which I think is like $30, but it's in euros, so it's a little different. But if you pay for the Power Pack, then you get tons more stuff. And I'm actually going to open it up so I can make sure I mention what it is you can do in here. So the Power Pack, most importantly, it unlocks workflows, which are kind of the custom functions of Alfred that anybody can make. And I've actually dabbled at making a few of those myself. But it also opens up a bunch of other stuff. I can't really, actually, now that I have the Power Pack, I can't see which features are Power Pack only. But there's things in here like dealing with your contacts. It has its own iTunes player. It'll integrate with 1Password, which I love and am totally dependent on. It will do terminal commands for you. And then most importantly, it'll do workflows, which means anybody can go in and write actions for it to do, and it'll do them. So I've written things like empty my downloads folder is probably my most well-known one, where if I type empty, actually the keyword I use here is empty DL, but I just type EMP and it already knows what I want. But that'll empty your downloads folder as if it were the trash can, so that works really well for me because I don't tend to keep things in there, but things pile up, right? So once I'm kind of, if I think of it, I'll do that and it'll get rid of everything in there, clean it out. But I wrote workflows just to very quickly open the websites that I use a lot. I have a workflow in here that lets me tag files and folders, which is a nice feature built into OS X. I've got actually there's one in here that searches a Pokedex. So while I was playing Pokemon, if I was fighting something and I wanted to know like what it was weak against or strong against, I could do that. I could just type Dex and then the name of the Pokemon, and it would come up, and you don't have to press enter or anything. It just comes up and tells you, this type is strong against this type. So it knows which Pokemon you want, what type it is, and then it'll tell you which types it's strong against and weak against. There's a top processes one. Wow, this is complicated. There's a top processes one that will come up with a list of all the things that are using your computer's resources. I mean, there's just unlimited numbers. There's crazy amounts of these things, and anybody can make one in most of your common scripting languages. So if you're a programmer and you want to make your own thing, like I do this all the time. If there's an action that I do a lot and I just want to be able to invoke it very quickly, I will make a workflow for it. So the key with Alfred is that it's like the command line for your computer that no longer needs the command line. Like back in the day on older computers, all you had was a text prompt, right? And you would type what you wanted and it would happen. And we've gotten away from that because now we have these metaphors like windows and sliding who's and what's it's and bars everywhere and stuff like that. And I love that stuff. I'm a total GUI guy. But sometimes you just want to type something and have it happen. And Alfred lets you do that with more things. One of the things that's really cool about it is you can, if you're doing an action on multiple files, like let's say I want to grab a bunch of files and move them, you can there's like a buffer in there, so you can select files one at a time and then type what you want to do, and it will do it to all of them. So you can move a bunch of files to one location or tag a bunch of files or whatever it is you want to do, you can use it to do that. So it's bringing back a little bit of what was good about the command line without all of what was difficult about the command line.
Very fair. That's awesome. Yeah, I've just downloaded the basic version for my laptop, which will actually kind of segue into our next segment about setup and workflows. Because when I moved out here to California, I got a laptop from work, which is awesome because I got a free MacBook basically to work with. Nice. Yes, very nice. Thank you, employer. But
I just left my employer, so now I'm down one laptop.
That's the worst.
So my loss is your gain.
There we go. But anyway, the issue is that I am not super great with the whole laptop setup of like the touchpad and that. But the problem is I like work. I'll be sitting on the couch or I'll be sitting in bed and stuff working because I'm working from home. Why not? So it's not really conducive to having a mouse all the time. So I'm really trying to get used to like limiting how much mouse using I'm doing and just being more strictly keyboard. And Alfred looks like it's going to be a huge help to that. Like I say, I haven't even gotten the workflow package yet, but being able to just type in, oh, I want to open this file because like all my jobs are coded by numbers. And so I open Alfred, I type in like the first two numbers of it, and it's like, oh, do you want this brief? And I'm like, yes, that's the one. I click, or I either click it or I just hit command whatever, and it's open for me. So it's saved me a ton of time already.
Awesome. Yeah, it's not that Spotlight can't do these things. It totally can. But the way that it's presented is just not what you need. Like with Alfred, it's like you type what you want, and boom, there it is. With Spotlight, it's like it's off in the corner, and it's all separated by file type, and like it's just not. It's not presenting you with what you need right now. And
if you're not searching exactly,
you can tell that in the new version they're dealing with that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say in the new version of Spotlight in Yosemite, you can tell that they've recognized that that's an issue, and they're working on it and really making it more Alfred-like.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, it'll be great for people who are, who like to use the built-in tools and aren't out there looking for productivity apps all the time like we are.
That's fair.
So, anything else you wanted to add about your adventures in Trackpad Land?
That was the big thing. I still inevitably get caught in the thing where I have a finger down, I try to click, and it right-clicks for me and doesn't do what I want it to. But other than that,
if you want to,
I'm sure there's a way you can stop that.
Well, there are different ways that you can deal with right-clicking. A lot of my students would set it so that if you clicked in the corner of your mouse pad, it would right-click. And that drove me absolutely nuts because I am a two-finger clicker. That's kind of how I prefer to do it. But also something that I like to do, that maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't, but I like to turn on tap to click. So you don't actually have to press the button to click. You just tap on the trackpad, and it will initiate a click. So, so it's less physical thing you have to do.
Yeah.
I really like it. In fact, I would not be that surprised if they eventually remove the button clickery of it entirely and just make it a surface that you tap on. But it feels a little bit more kind of iPhone, iPad-like, I guess, that way.
Cool.
But, yeah, excuse me. I'll say this about trackpads. When I had my MacBook Pro, I got pretty good with the trackpad. Like, I could get around pretty quick, and I never really had any problem navigating. But I have the Magic Trackpad for my iMac here.
Oh, yeah?
I cannot use it. I don't know why. Like, I also have a mouse,
Hmm.
And I love, oh man, I love this mouse. Like I could not be happier with it. It's the best mouse in the world. But I have the trackpad too for scrolling and for when I want to scroll horizontally. And sometimes if the mouse isn't connected, I'll go to use the trackpad. And I can't use it. I don't know why. I mean, maybe it's just because the screen is so massive. I have a 27-inch iMac, and it's just way too hard to get the cursor
Do,
across the screen. I guess. I don't
yeah.
know.
I wonder too if it might be because it's at an angle.
Yeah,
Like
that
where.
really bothers me. In fact, I tried putting it up on stuff. Like I would, it's at this kind of an angle. So I would
Yeah.
put, sorry, audio listeners. So I would put like something under it to make it flat. But even then, it was better. It is better, but I just still can't do it. It's like I'll move all the way across the screen to hit a small target, like the red X circle to close a
Yep.
window, or the green circle to change its size, and I'll get really, really close, but I don't have the fine precision to get right on it and click it. Whereas with the mouse, I can move all the way across the screen and click a tiny target and move all the way back without even thinking about it. And
Yep.
so it's really hard for me to commit to using the trackpad more. But if anybody out there has trackpad tips or trackpad training routines or anything like that, send them my way.
Yeah. Let us know.
So you were gonna. Oh, okay. So speaking of workflow stuff, I'll talk about my workflow thing.
Sure.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about Inbox Zero, which I'm sure many people have, some amount of consternation about, and specifically the way I operate with Inbox Zero. So the concept of Inbox Zero is that every item in your email inbox constitutes something you must do, right? So somebody sends you an email, and they're either telling you something or they're asking for something. If they're telling you something, you have to read the email so you know what they're telling you. And if they're asking for something of you, then you need to define what that thing is and you need to do it. But one of the problems that we have is that we just kind of let the emails pile up. And I'm not talking about unread emails. I'm talking about like stuff you've already looked at that just kind of sits in there. And so stuff that just sits in there. And nobody really likes to have thousands of emails piled up in their inbox. In fact, at my worst, I had about 1,000 emails piled up, and it's too stressful. I don't want to deal with that. Like I don't want to have to parse the whole email inbox just to figure out what I need. So I sat down a while back and I kind of tried to get a handle on how I could do things differently, and the real revelation came when an app called Mailbox came out for iOS. And I waited for a really long time to actually get into this thing. It's got kind of it had like a limited entry system where basically like you would say that you wanted to use it, and then you would wait a really long time in line while everybody else got access, and then eventually they would let you in. And so when I finally did get access to it, I realized that it really is the way that I like to operate. And I don't know if I can show it right now, but I'm going to pop it up so you can see it. So, now you can't see that. I'll put up the website. So, it basically, it looks at the start like your average, here we go, your average email client. It's kind of a list of emails, and then you can, tap an email to view it. But what's really cool about Mailbox is that it's got these gestures that let you very easily archive emails, and it kind of plays into the way that Gmail is designed to work. So Gmail, what's interesting about Gmail is Google designed it so that you would never actually have to delete anything. They put in this archive function so that you could just archive the email that you weren't going to look at, like instead of deleting it. And that way it's gone from your site and you never have to think about it unless you want to see it, and then you can still search for it and it's there. So Mailbox kind of plays into that by saying, well, if archived mail is still available in case you want to see it, why not just archive all the stuff that you're not, you don't need to do right now, and then you're left with only the things you actually need to do, and you can treat email a little bit like a to-do list. So if you archive the stuff that's done, and you are left with all the stuff that you need to do, then you have a list of tasks. And the other thing they did that's really interesting is they put in delay systems. So basically you can say, okay, I see that this email is a task, but I don't want to do this task right now, so send this back to me in a day or in a week or in an hour and a half. And you can very, very quickly tell it when to send that email back, and it'll just hold on to it and send it back to you when you're ready for it. So It's really, really nice because you don't have to look at all that stuff that's just waiting to get done. If it's something you're not going to do until later, you send it away and it'll come back later. So that's where it's really valuable. And so I've been able to kind of adopt that methodology not just on iOS, but now in Gmail, and soon they're actually going to release a Mac app. So hopefully I'll be able to access all my delayed stuff on the computer as well. I'm really, really excited for that. Now, what's your email methodology? How do you handle email?
I did use Mailbox for a while. I am currently just Gmail on both desktop and on my iPhone. I was actually, when I was in the office, I was actually able to keep to inbox 0 just using vanilla Gmail because I was basically on the computer all day, so I was able to keep up with it. It's gotten a little bit away from me now, so I'd love to get back to that. Hearing that there's going to be a Mailbox for Mac is a very good option for that because that's what got me initially to Mailbox 0. But yeah, right now I think Mailbox 0 taught me the value of archiving because I never used to archive prior, and then once I got that, I was like, oh, this is a brilliant thing to do, so I'll do this all the time.
Yeah, oh, weird. I'm trying to take a look at the beta of Mailbox app for Mac, but it's not working out. Yeah, I'm a little bit in kind of a similar boat where like I didn't at first understand the value in archiving, and now I feel like I have a much better understanding of like why they designed it that way, and it makes so much sense now. But before it was like, what does this button do? Why do I need this? I can just throw things out.
Exactly. Why would I want to archive things if they could just be in my inbox and be fine?
Right. Yeah, I had like thousands of emails in my inbox, and it took me forever to archive them because you can only do like 100 at a time. But once I had done that, I realized like, oh, if I want to see everything, I just click all mail, and then I see all my mail. It's like there's no need to keep it in your inbox because it's not gone if it's not in your inbox. Like people treat their inbox like it's that's the whole system, and once it's gone from there, you can never see it again. And that's not the way Gmail is supposed to work.
Exactly.
So that's huge for me. I gotta say that's like a big deal. In fact, it's the other thing that's nice about kind of that boomerang system where things keep coming back is if I send something away, like come back in an hour, come back in an hour, come back in an hour. By the end of the day, it's like, oh my god, this is so annoying. I just need to do this thing so I can stop having to come back every hour, and then I do it. So it must be working.
Yeah.
In fact, I have something that's been coming back to me every day for a few days now, and I need to do it.
Well, get on.
Yeah, I do. I will. I'll have to do that. I actually meant to do it today, and I didn't. I'm such a bad person. I'll do it tomorrow. Okay, so let's jump on to our discussion section, which maybe we should make a little bit shorter than we had in mind before, because it's already getting kind of long.
Sure thing. Yeah.
So do you want to jump in and introduce this topic?
So our topic is going to be massive open online courses, not to be confused with massively multiplayer online RPGs. Although I think the name stole one from the other. Basically, what started off, close to 100 years ago now as correspondence courses over the mail and radio broadcast courses from NYU has since evolved into online courses that are available for free to anyone through schools like Harvard, MIT, NYU, Stanford, UCLA. Basically, almost every major school now has at least one MOOC available or MOOC available through, and one of the most popular sites is edx.org, where you can take pretty much, if there's a topic, you can probably find a course on it. Some will be better than others, some are more conducive than others, but it's great to have that kind of an option. I first actually learned about MOOCs about a year ago, looking for game design courses, just curious about what was out there in terms of college level classes, whether about game theory or probability and stuff like that. And I saw that there was one through EDX about the study of probability, which I thought that'd be cool. I'll take that. Signed up for it in like November. The course didn't start until February. On New Year's Eve, I got an email saying, hey, from edx.org, saying, hey, start the new year right with a new class. And one of the classes they had was Harvard's CS50, which is basically their computer science 101 class. They call it 50 because they're Harvard and they like to be special.
Who doesn't like to be special?
And it started January 1st. So I was like, sure, I'll sign up for that and see what it's about. I've yet to take the probability course because I'm still in the CS50 course and am absolutely loving it. It's probably one of EDX's flagship courses because it's just really been built for that platform. They've got, you know, lectures, they've got problem sets, they've got the what they call sections, which are basically like additional lectures run by the TAs. They've got all these shorts that you can watch about any specific topic, and they give you a controlled environment through VMware Fusion. They give you a year license to it for free, and
Which
basically,
is awesome on its own.
yeah, exactly. And so you're basically in a Unix environment doing the command line stuff, writing in C, doing everything, and able to send all the stuff to their program checker, and it will tell you if you did it right or not in real time. It's phenomenal. And I mean, this is obviously like the best case and a corner case scenario for a MOOC where, you know, everything is working perfectly. But I think it shows the promise that that MOOCs have too.
Yeah, I gotta say, after talking to you about this, I signed up for it too, and I am really liking it so far. I haven't had as much time as I'd like to devote to it, but I'm gonna do more in the near future. And yeah, I think you're right that it's their flagship course. It's the only one I ever see, you know, kind of pushed on their front page and everything.
Yeah.
They definitely are really putting a lot of effort behind it, and you can totally tell. I mean, it really shows that they've put a lot of work into this. And I learned a lot about MOOCs doing my master's in education, and this is like a big new direction that the industry is going, and it's really exciting. And this is like a perfect example of where it can be. And if there were more courses out there like this, I think that's good for the world. Yeah. You know, I think that's a really great thing. And I'm looking forward to getting deeper in and playing around a little bit more. I also got to say, I love that there are certification options, but you can also get the course for free. And that's really, really huge, especially since if you want to get certified, why not look at the course first, just get a sense for it, and then if it's really something you want to do, then you commit. There's actually been a little bit of controversy in the world of MOOCs because they don't have high retention rates. You know, generally tons and tons of people sign up. Not all that many people finish. But the more forward-thinking among us recognize that that's not a problem. That's actually a good thing because it means lots of people are trying. They're willing to go out and try, but then the ones that find the thing that fits them, they're following through. And the idea that it's a good thing I'm not employed at a school anymore because they might not like it if I said this. But the idea that you can get perfect 100% follow-through on something, I think is outdated. Like, you know, I understand the need to throw 20 or 30 kids into an algebra classroom and make sure that every kid learns algebra. That is very important. But with something like this, that's it's a skill that's more specialized. Isn't it better if the people who are interested in it are the ones who, you know, they put in the time, they put in the dedication, and they're able to learn it? What's going on with my video?
Yeah, it's something of a long-tail approach to education, which I think is great. For those who don't know, long-tail is basically this idea that if you've got stuff, particularly in a digital sphere, where there's virtually no cost to storing it. Like, this was very popular once MP3s kind of overtook CDs, or like print-on-demand books, where, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to store it, so you can have all of these opportunities available to people. And if only 1% of 1% actually follow through, it's of no loss to you. But you're getting those people through that are actually going to do it and are going to do well. So that's of a benefit to you.
And some of those people might not have been able to access that course in another way. I mean, in this case, You've got a course from Harvard where most people are not able to go. I didn't go to Harvard, you know, and yet I could go take this class, and I may be successful at it. And even though lots of people won't be successful at it, it's a way for, even if I could get into Harvard, I might not be able to afford it, and I could still go and take this course and I could get a Harvard education. And that's the thing, is it kind of changes the value proposition. So that knowledge that exists within Harvard is no longer locked in that expensive box that only the privileged may enter. It's now freely available, and now that box has different value. Now its value is in the connections you make and the access to professors and the environment that you're in and the structured programs that they offer, right? Like, there's still tons of value there, potentially even enough value for the exorbitant amount of money that you're paying to go there. But the knowledge is no longer hidden. The knowledge is open and available to everybody, and I think that's really valuable.
Actually, it'll be interesting to see if this access to the information does change that price tag at all over time. I don't think it's going to be anything that happens for a decade or so, but it might have that effect of being like, hey, what we're offering now is of a different value than it was 10 years ago. Do we have to kind of refigure that out?
Yeah, the whole value proposition behind higher education is a multifaceted and fascinating issue that I think is definitely going to see some change. I don't know what kind of change we'll see, but there's a lot of attention around it for a variety of reasons, including this one. So we'll see what happens with that in the next few years. Just really quickly before we move on, I think we should just kind of finish up pretty soon because we're running a little bit long already.
Yeah, that's fine.
But just really, really quickly, you put in a section in here for CS50 alternatives.
Yes.
And we should both talk about that a little bit, I think. Some are paid, some are free. All are excellent. The one I want to highlight here specifically is codecademy.com, which has been huge for me personally. I used it to learn JavaScript, which opened a lot of doors for me. It helped me learn Unity, which is a game development environment that I taught at work for several years. It's helped me learn PHP. It's helped me learn Python. There's all these different programming languages on there that you can learn, and APIs and all this other stuff. I won't get into programming terminology here, but there's all kinds of stuff you can learn on Code Academy, and it's all free, and it's fun, and there's forums there where you can talk to other people who are working on stuff, and God, it's just the best. I love it. So if you have any interest in learning how to program, which we'll spend some time on a future episode just talking about the value of programming and computer science thinking. But it's valuable for anything that you want to do. But I've done so much stuff on there, and it's just the best. I may even go back there this week and do some more because I want to, brush up on some stuff that I haven't done in a while, and it's just awesome. Which of these do you like?
I like Codecademy. There was a little bit. One thing that kind of let me down just a little bit in it was that it taught me the language of it, but it didn't teach me when I finished Codecademy, I went to write a JavaScript page, and then it didn't work, and I was like, why isn't this working? It's like, oh, you need this header there before it's going to work, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. So there's a little bit of that I feel like was missing.
Yeah, it's definitely not in context. The stuff that you write on Codecademy works on Codecademy.
Exactly.
The issue that I always had with that was the students would try to, the first thing I would have them do in Unity is print a line of text. And so they would type in console.log because in Codecademy you're working in a browser, so you use console.log to print. And they're not in a browser, so they go and type console.log and they get an error, and they're like, oh, Mr. Lipson, why isn't it working? And it's because, well, the print command is different in a different environment. And it's little things like that, and they just had there was nothing to show them that things might be different in a different environment. They were kind of led to believe that Codecademy is the way all things are, and it's not.
Well, I think one thing too I've learned just in general in learning computer science stuff is that it's all about documentation. And whatever you're going to be doing, you need to be willing to sit down and read up on the documentation whenever you have a question, because that's how you're going to figure stuff out like that, versus just having it handed to you through a tutorial, because there's just so many, pardon the computer science term, but there's so many variables involved that they can't give you one tutorial that's going to cover all that.
The best documentation, I gotta say, has a variety of examples in addition to explanation and talking about all the commands and everything. It's gotta have multiple pathways through which you can see how the thing works.
Another one that seems really good is Treehouse, but they are a paid or subscription service.
I've
Um,
done their like free trial once or twice, and it is
yeah.
very, very good. I
Mhm.
wouldn't say it's light years better than Codecademy. There's more video, there's more time put into the creation of the instruction,
Mhm.
but I wouldn't say that it's worth. Well, it's worth it if it's the way you like to learn. Like it's great because it's got quizzes built in and it's got video and there's like it's much more of a it's closer to the experience of a class while still being interactive. Whereas Codecademy is more like a series of exercises that's kind of a conversation between you and the service where
Yeah.
you're just completing the
Yeah, I think
tasks
that
that it assigns you.
Yeah, I think that's the difference that came to mind to me is it seemed that Treehouse was more project based, where Codecademy was more
Yeah,
exercise based, which I think I
definitely.
saw value in that. But again, it's subscription based and pretty fairly expensive for a
It
subscription.
is pretty expensive. It's really a shame how expensive it is actually because I do like it, but it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't provide enough additional value. There's some stuff in it that's really really great, but I mean,
Mhm.
if I can live with a lower production value video, I can go on YouTube and I can watch a video about loops or about you know um, color theory or something like that. They do a
Precisely.
great job with their videos, but it's that whole idea of locking knowledge or information behind a paywall, right? Like
Exactly.
information is free, knowledge is free,
Yep.
and it's gonna get out there. So you have to offer something other than just the knowledge itself. And they do a good job of offering
The presentation quality.
presentation, but I don't know if it's a good enough job for me to pay what they're asking, especially for the topics that they're talking about. Because a lot of the topics that they're doing are stuff that is easily found elsewhere. Whereas another one that you listed here, lynda.com, one of
Hmm.
their strengths is that they have a very wide variety of topics and
Yeah.
excellent instructors, not quite the level of production value of Treehouse, but a wider
Mhm.
variety so that you can get the specific thing that you want. I use that to learn Objective-C and Xcode, and that
Okay.
was a great course. Oh my god, it was awesome. I still find Objective-C to be a total mess, and for me anyway, I think it's very difficult. But
Hmm.
I'm excited for Swift, which is Apple's new programming language that's going to replace it. But the teacher was fantastic. The course was great. And I should also mention one of my college professors, who is like my favorite teacher ever. He does some courses on Lynda, which is pretty cool.
Nice.
So I've messed around with those a little bit. Although also like he does these amazing courses on like audio effects, but
Hmm.
there's a channel on Wikipedia on YouTube called Wikimedia that I used in my audio production classes that I teach, and he's fantastic, like just as good as anything you would see on lynda.com. In fact, usually better because he has all these awesome animations and like he just puts a lot of work into his YouTube channel, and it's just as good as something you'd pay for.
Yeah. I think.
And that's the way things are going. Like people are recognizing that, yeah, you might put a lot of work into something, but someone else out there is willing to do it for free because they enjoy it. You
And I
know?
think the balance there is that with YouTube, for example, well, with Linda, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Like you're 99% sure you know what you're getting. You might get one crappy class, but generally you know what you're. Whereas YouTube, you might have to search for a while through different. Like I remember you when I was looking into Blender, you showed me that series of tutorials on that, which were
Yeah.
great. But I know that there's
I
also dozens of others that are either really
yep.
dry, really slow, or don't tell you what you need to know.
I looked through them all before I found the one that I sent you.
Hmm.
That's the thing. You have to be willing to kind of wade through the crap, but
Yep.
YouTube benefits from the power of social recommendations, which Lynda doesn't quite as much. Like so, here's an example that's a little bit off topic. So this morning I went to the gym, and before I went to the gym, I was reading Reddit's fitness section because I wanted to, whenever I have a question about whether I'm doing something right, I just search it on Reddit Fitness and somebody's talking about it. So I found a discussion about form for barbell squats, and there was this link to a half-hour long YouTube video that is the best explanation of how to squat. You wouldn't think it would take half an hour to explain how to squat, but it really does. It's very surprisingly complex. But it was amazing. This guy, like, he was just fantastic. Just did a great job explaining it. He demonstrated it a ton of times, and he like was showing like how you need to get your hip below your knee level. So he put like, you know, pink tape on his knee and then on his hip so that you could see like when his hip got below knee level. It's just the coolest thing. People do these things, and it's like it was low production value, but it was a great explanation of the topic. And like that guy could go do something with higher production value and he could charge for it. But people are perfectly willing to watch that lower one. It's actually I'll do a podcast plug here. So I watch a podcast called Cord Killers that's all about cord cutting, like cutting cable and getting your TV over the internet. But Brian Brushwood, one of the hosts of that show, always talks about the distinction between convenience and fidelity. So people will choose convenience over fidelity most of the time, which is why you get your crappy quality audio MP3s, your crappy quality video over streaming services, because it's so convenient. People are willing to take the dip in quality. So you don't see people going out and buying Blu-rays or super audio CDs or whatever the hell the audio thing is now. Like, I'm a total audiophile, and I still use streaming music services because it's so much more convenient and a lot cheaper. And I, you know, I recognize the value in an extremely high-quality audio recording. I love listening to that stuff, but I'm not going to go out and pay tons of money for it.
Yeah.
So that, I kind of think, brings us to the conclusion here.
Yeah, that was all I had to say about MOOCs.
Yeah. This is really fun.
Oh, absolutely. I think hopefully everyone else has enjoyed it.
Yeah. We had a couple of viewers, so that's cool.
Oh, cool.
We don't know anymore. They're gone. But hopefully we'll see some people on YouTube as an archive. And in the future, like next week, I may try to do this from my channel that has all my videos on it, not my personal channel. And that way we can get kind of a built-in base of people. But anyway, let's go ahead and sign off, and then we can discuss further.
Absolutely.
So thanks for watching. This has been the Get It Made show. I believe I said that right. Get It Made. And we'll be back next week at around the same time, maybe a few hours earlier. I think it's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right, on Mondays?
That's the 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. Eastern. Yeah. That. What he said.
My time doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Okay, so in the meantime, if you're looking for us, you can find me at twitter.com/rockitude, and I will have some other links to things that I do, like my GitHub profile and my website, my YouTube channel, in the show notes, which I guess we'll put on YouTube, but maybe in the future we want to do like a site, like a blog.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me at twitter.com/boardgameben. Should be down in my lower third that I now have. Hooray!
Yay.
Yeah, I also have a blog, boardgameben.com, which will hopefully be up in the next day or two.
Awesome. And check us out next week for graphics and music and bumpers and all the other things that you expect from a show.
Hooray, professional quality.
Yeah, and then hopefully in the future we'll get a podcast feed going. I still have to figure out how I'm going to handle that. But that is coming. So stay tuned. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.